whole thing, right, is there's this whole, like, weird double joke that's going on through it because, like, he doesn't really have, like, a direct name, at least not one that everybody knows. So the whole thing is, like, you know, who is he, right? And then they go, well, he's the Doctor. And they go, well, Doctor Who? Get it?
Oh, God. Oh, you mean... 15 minutes.
See?
And that was...
All leading up to that. Isn't that one heck of a punchline?
Oh, my God.
And they use that, like, so much in the show.
Why?
Have I converted you now?
No.
Really?
I don't think so.
You don't... Oh.
I mean, I've watched Doctor Who. I get it.
Doctor Who? Huh?
The Doctor.
But Doctor Who!
Right. The Doctor. He's...
Right. Doctor
Like
Who.
13 now, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's the 13th Doctor.
But the Who thing, is it maybe, am I thinking it's funnier than it actually is?
Probably.
Okay. That makes sense knowing me.
Yeah.
Hi everybody. Welcome to a very special new episode of Gaming with Intention, the Bodhana-Cast. Because today, we're actually going to be starting a new segment for the show.
Yay!
A lot of people have asked, hey, you guys do all this great board game stuff, and that's awesome. But Bodhana also uses a lot of role-playing games in what they do. So could you maybe have some type of segment talking about role-playing games? And we also, I guess, kind of thought, well, there's not really a tremendous amount of board games that are therapeutic in nature, so we kind of wanted something, you know, one love for the therapists and the clinicians out there. So
Did you just gang sign?
no, not gang sign. One love, isn't that what it? I'm a little removed from the current younger people culture.
It's okay.
As evidenced by the fact that I call them the younger people culture.
Yeah.
I'm old. But that means that I've had a lot of time on this planet to speak and play games. So, this segment is called Behind the Screen. So I am one of your lovely hosts for the Bodhana-Cast, Mr. Jack Berkenstock. I'm Executive Director and one of the founders of the Bodhana Group. And you, sir?
And I am Kirk James. James Kirk.
There we go.
Also a.k.a. the Captain. I'm a volunteer with the Bodhana Group and do some behind-the-scenes stuff, which is behind the scenes. Scenes being
behind the screen.
Right, behind the screens.
Yeah.
Synergy. So, I'm the other host here, and we are with you today to discuss our first RPG role-playing game.
Not rock and propel grenades.
No. We're not talking about weapons.
Yeah.
Our first role-playing game on the Bodhana-Cast, Gaming with Intention, with intent to game, called
Really?
No Thank You Evil.
Yes, No Thank You Evil. A very big favorite of ours. I mean, one thing that we usually do kind of a mention of this being kind of adjunct therapy. One of the kind of the special going into... because we're going to be talking about a lot of therapy concepts today. We're going to be talking a lot of potential uses or benefits about role-playing in general for therapy. We want everybody to remember that, you know, yes, this is something that, as always, should be married with kind of an adjunct therapy perspective of mind. This is something that is meant to augment or improve current therapeutic approach or therapeutic connection with a client. What we also kind of want to remember to say is that at this point, we are discussing potential benefits. This is something that I know, at least, you know, myself and from Bodhana's standpoint, we always want you to remember that there is kind of a fine art to role-playing games in general, like running a session that is engaging and, you know, the level of immersion and fun and connection is a big part of using gaming therapeutically. So, you know, I guess kind of our caveat is, one, we are not in any way being prescriptive. We don't directly know any of the clients or the persons that you may be supporting. So we are not saying, hey, because we did this for blah, 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 that means you can automatically do it for this person, because every person in treatment is unique, and that's just one layer of factors that need to be kind of taken into account when you're talking about therapeutic application of role-playing. We're, of course, going to highlight some of the other benefits, just because... you know, this is just a great fun game all in its lonesome, so it's a great introduction to gaming, which we'll get into. But we kind of needed to make sure that everybody knows This is not prescriptive. We're not telling you just pick this game up, go into your practice, and start doing this tomorrow.
And then you'll feel better.
Yeah, exactly.
See improvement.
Right. So maybe for the listeners out there, we want to maybe kind of define what exactly is a role-playing game.
So role-playing games allow you to take on the role of a character in a game that you are playing.
Okay.
Buzzwords.
Wow.
No,
you simplified the heck out of that.
I really did. So
you did. That was good.
In all seriousness, you get to take on the persona of a character of some type, and that character can virtually be anything that you want it to be.
Yeah.
And it fits inside of a larger world in which the stories take place. So for the purposes of No Thank You Evil, and I think really most role-playing games, one of the things that gets us really excited about using RPGs for therapeutic benefit, even the dog's excited, is that you can actually fit this to a wide range of different needs.
Yeah.
These games are so malleable that you can create almost limitless scenarios for such a wide range of different skills that you want to work on, or groups or needs that you want to target, that they're really perfect for that type of thing. And we should really talk about them, which is why we wanted to start including them with the Gaming with Intention cast.
Yeah, so I mean, every now and then we're going to kind of introduce different role-playing games, and again, a lot of folks might say, well, why didn't you start with like the granddaddy of role-playing games, Dungeons and Dragons, or go to Pathfinder? And again, one of the things that we kind of wanted to do is there's a lot of generalized application to role-playing games. So we're going to highlight some of that when we talk about the therapeutic benefits section, because there are aspects that can apply to virtually any role-playing game, just by the nature of what kind of game it is. But there are certain things about certain systems, they're very specific, like maybe it's the way the mechanics operate, or maybe it's the setting that you're utilizing, or maybe it's the type of rules and who they're written for, that can kind of, a specific game can kind of get a different edge to it that might give you kind of a leg up when you're using it in your practice and in sessions. And we'll kind of show you what you mean as we kind of go through this. So
also from a personal standpoint, if we're using the grandfather of games, Dungeons and Dragons, really honestly think about how often your grandfather is readily available to do whatever you want him to do. Okay? You know what? D&D had to nap today, so we're doing a different game.
That's good. Yeah, Grandpa D&D had to take a rest.
Yeah.
Okay. No, sincerely, we love D&D. We love all those. I mean, again, it's where the hobby came from. So, let's give you the short intro to No Thank You Evil. So, No Thank You Evil is a system that is produced and put out by Monte Cook Games, fun makers also of The Strange, Numenera. I believe it's called Invisible Sun, is one of their latest properties. The developer is Ms. Shauna Germain, a lovely person we've had the pleasure of being able to talk to and engage with. The game was put out in 2016, was a very successful Kickstarter. We actually have the Kickstarter exclusive version out here, which is a little bit on the flashy side. Session time.
How much time do you want to have?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, one of the benefits, though, about adventures in No Thank You is they are designed because it is, as you could probably tell from some of the kind of very cartoony animated kind of look of the whole game, they are designed to be very short adventures, kind of think of it like a half-an-hour cartoon show, kind of deal. So between like 30 and 60 minutes, it really depends on how able your participants are to be sitting on their butts, really, as to how long your sessions are. When you've lost an audience. One of the cool things about this game, we'll highlight this later, is ages are actually 5+. So this game can be played by children as young as 5, which makes it a fairly unique game in the role-playing game world. And they say between 2 to 5 players, 3 to 4 is a sweet spot. We'll kind of talk about that when we talk about groups, because I know I've run tables as large as like 8 to 10 people. Depending on how you're running, your comfortability with running, you could probably run with more than that magic number. But there's other different reasons that, we're going to talk about then. There's going to be a lot of meat to this episode today, so, strap in.
Hope you're hungry.
Yes, it's going to be a good one. No thank you seconds, because the first meal was filling enough. So elevator pitch to No Thank You Evil is it's basically a let's go on an adventure game. Each player takes the role of a character in the game that basically is kind of like you go on adventures with a companion that you have. And this companion is anything from like a dragon or a little shmoo looking blob to a robot with a talking car. And you basically just go on adventures in the mystical world of Storia, which we'll talk to a little bit when we get past the basic intro. So type of game, it is a role-playing game. Specifically, it's narrative role-playing, which the whole goal is to tell a story. And that story is one of the big kind of misnomers a lot of people have about role-playing games is typically this thought that, well, the GM tells the story. Well, no, the game master or the person running the game, they facilitate the interaction that drives the story forward. So literally our job as GM is, here's a challenge. We're going to put that right there. We're going to see what you guys and gals want to do with that. And then the persons playing in the role of their character are going to come up with a solution that's going to kind of help them get through whatever that challenge might be.
Or they don't.
Yes, which is okay.
And they just ignore it.
Yeah.
And then they don't want to do that.
Could that have consequences?
Maybe.
Perhaps.
I didn't write it yet.
Ooh, what do you mean you didn't write it? But I thought to do a game master, you have to have this whole elaborate Lord of the Rings kind of story out set in front of you.
Well, Jack.
That's a very interesting question you've asked. No, seriously.
One of the interactive parts with this thing is the fact that, as you're running this as the GM, you have an idea of where you want to go, but it's just as fun to let the players, by their actions, write the story, and you almost become reactionary. You know where you're leading them. You know where the end game is going to be.
Yep.
But the journey, how you get there, is sometimes so much more fun if it's told by the people that you're playing with.
Well, yeah, there's a couple of reasons for that. Did you ever, that satisfaction that you have when you're watching a movie and you kind of guess what's going to happen? You don't necessarily really know, right, you don't necessarily know what's going to happen, but there's a certain joy in knowing that this wondrous thing that's happening, this adventure that's being created, you were part of making that.
Oh my God, we were dead the whole time.
Wait, Bruce Willis is in the land of Storia? That's amazing!
Alert!
Yeah, Dumbledore's dead. Sorry. So, yeah, no, mind blown. So, there's a couple, we're going to take a departure from kind of the normal way that we present review of games here on Behind the Screen as a segment, because board games and role-playing games are a little bit different. For us to, quote-unquote, explain the rules of any role-playing game would literally, it could take us between 2 to 3 hours, just for basic rules.
You don't have that time, and frankly, neither do we.
Yeah, that is true. So, we'll give you a basic kind of overview. So, when you, in No Thank You Evil, it is often kind of referred to as Numenera Light or the Strange Light, because it's similar to their regular rule set. It operates off of basic D6. So, you have a challenge, you give the characters a rating for that challenge, so it could be anywhere from 1, which is kind of no-brainer, your character automatically is able to do that, all the way to 6, which is kind of a next to impossible kind of thing that you need to do. Then the character rolls the dice, applies whatever bonuses they have from their stats, and we'll talk about that in a second. So when you go ahead to do a lot of these skill rolls, okay, we want to talk a little bit about, your basic character sheet. So your character sheet, in general, is kind of a map. Map! I'm the map, I'm the map, I'm the map. It's basically, it contains all relevant information about the persona that you're taking on in the context of the role-playing game. So,
for example,
yes,
this character sheet, which is fun with No Thank You Evil, because there are games where you can get into really deep backgrounds and huge backstories. Yeah. But with No Thank You Evil, one of the really cool parts, and the reason that it's so accessible for younger players, is because your character, this is as simple as it gets, guys. Fiona is a, fill in the line, fast princess who, fill in the line, eats ice cream.
Yeah. And we'll talk about how special that can be in a sec, but that's Yeah, I mean, you basically have 4 stats that you need to keep track of in the game. You have tough, which is your physical strength. Your fast, which is speed or dexterity. Your smart, which is your brains and your figure it out puzzles. And then your awesome, which is a special stat that actually makes No Thank You Evil kind of unique in terms of what it can offer for young kids. So, before we go into the whole noun, verb, adjective, trust me, we're not going to cheaply
It's like Mad Libs!
It's like... Actually, it kind of is.
A little bit, yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah.
So there's actually one of the cool things about this and how it is accessible for kids of different ages is there's actually 3 different versions of the character sheet. There is the orange version, which is kind of the most basic. Then we have the green, which is 1 step up. And then we have the blue, which is like the expert level. So the basic idea is when you say about your character, you know, James said Fiona is a blank blank who blanks. So you have an adjective, a noun, and a verb. So the basic idea of this structure is when you say about Fiona is a fast, that's the adjective. So that kind of describes the character, gives a little bit more depth, but it also correlates to one of the attributes. So Fiona being fast gets an extra point in her fast skill. Why? Because she's fast. So that enables her to do more things that are dexterity based in the game, that also gives her a benefit when trying to do things that are speed-based. Now, the noun part is kind of one of the specials when we get into your character building. So the noun, basically, is what kind of character you are. And that's another area in which No Thank You Evil really, really shines. So, No Thank You Evil, a kid can create literally whatever they want. Like, when we made our characters...
Is that a ninja firefighter?
It definitely looks, and he kind of looks like a young Sam Jackson.
Wow!
Yes. Then we have, we have wizards, robots, aliens, pirates, princess, and it's not one of these things that's locked down. That's an important thing to remember about No Thank You Evil, is that it's an archetype, which gives you a general skill map, but the kid can customize this in whatever creative way that they want. And I think that that's very important, especially for younger kids, for 2 reasons. One, you don't have a lot of deep rules. I mean, again, no offense to larger, crunchier systems, and crunchy, as we've said, is just systems that have very, very, charts upon tables and charts. But,
My charts have charts.
My charts have charts.
And you can read the chart by finding this table and then consulting the charts that came from that table.
Ooh, Chartered Accounting, the RPG. I'm excited.
And then roll percentiles.
What? I've gone cross-eyed.
Right.
But yeah, you create the character basically from any kind of archetype. So if you want to be, a wizard, you could be a fire wizard, a bubble wizard, an air wizard, a water wizard, a bubblegum wizard, whatever the heck you want to be. And it's the creativity of working that in that really helps to engage the kid in really kind of silly adventures as you're going through this. So that's our adjective and our noun. Then our verb. Verb is, in that case it was eats ice cream. That's one of the ones that is kind of offered from the book, which gives you a lot of different suggestions. So with eats ice cream, it could be, now you have a frost power because you ate ice cream. Or maybe you can give bad guys an ice cream headache. Or, maybe you can...
shoot sprinkles from your fingertips!
It can happen! But that's one of the beauteous things about No Thank You Evil, is that because it has that unlimited creativity. I remember one of the ones that I think we did when we were test playing it a while ago is we created a pirate who loved the letter R. So obviously, because of the little pirate joke, it meant that every time he tried to do something that started with an R word, what we built into the game was you had to go, I would like to travel in our reverse, or reverse, or it's some kind of creative way of bringing it in, but that was kind of a fun thing that gave that character a bonus. And there's a ton of different options, and don't be shy about being creative because the goal is pretty much to have fun. So characters, a basic character only has to say, blank is a blank. So you only have to say, I'm a pirate. Whatever that means to a 5-year-old in the context of the game, perfectly fine to explore that, right? But then as the player gets older, or the player might have more experience, you get to add other elements to that, being the adjective, and then finally the verb gets added. So it's little layers of complexity, which makes it also a great accessible system. So then the companion, kind of pretty much the same thing, but your companion can be anything from Dust Bunny to an alien, to a talking car, to a dragon, a little baby T-Rex. The game also comes with these little starter cards, which kind of help stimulate imagination for people. So if kids are stumped, have them pick some at random. Sometimes figuring what we don't want our character to be can kind of help us define what we'd like the character to be.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So that's kind of some of the basics. As far as what the rules operate on, you also have little chits that the game provides, which are one of the ways that you kind of go through the adventure. So basically, if I'm going to do something that requires smart, I can do what the game calls try harder, where I have, let's say I have a tough of 3. Well, that means that I get 3 little tokens with the smart logo on them or emblem on them. So during the game, if I want to try harder to do something like extra tough, okay, I get to spend one of these, and that takes 1 off of the difficulty of the roll that I'm going for. And then there's even further cool by the fact that I can use an awesome point to help out a buddy, because helping other people is awesome. That's kind of a nice little moral thing they kind of put into there. It also makes the adventure more fun because you have to creatively think of how you're going to be awesome to help your buddy.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have fun tokens, which allow you to get all of your other tokens back, and then your companions have snacks because they get to do kind of special fun stuff. Like, there is a ton of creativity about this system, all the way up to items and enemies. If you want to talk about the items a little bit.
So the items, one of the things that I truly love about this game is the artwork. It's very engaging for both younger and older players, and it gives kind of a base interpretation. Like if somebody were to get something called a dangerous dress, there's a lot of different ways that somebody would envision, like, okay, what would I be wearing that would be dangerous about this outfit? Is it dangerous because it has pockets? Did Rob Liefeld draw this? You know, things like that.
How many people are getting that joke?
Ask your comic shop.
Okay. Nice.
So, with this dangerous dress, it's got all these spikes coming out of it and stuff, like, which looks dangerous. It looks like a porcupine dress. And then it has a description on the back of the card. Covered in spines, this dress is truly bad news for bad guys. So they give a picture of the item, they have a description on the back of it and what the item does, and the drawings are very cool, and you can almost start to, as you're building this character and as this character is finding things, you almost start to get a picture in your head of, like, this is my spy that's wearing a dress with spikes in it, and looks like Samuel L. Jackson. It's very strange, but that's a cool thing that this game does really well. Is it gives you a lot of opportunities to visualize what it is you're doing or playing.
Yeah, I mean, in general, there's also specialized items. There are actually some of kind of the epic items that are to be found in the game, like the two-way radio head, which got to be a pretty awesome thing. So it's a radio that looks like a head with 2 faces. You can listen to 2 stations at one time.
This thing's a creep.
Yeah. Very nice. Very nice. Oh, couldn't look you in the eye after that reference. So, it plays basically the way that any role-playing game would play, as far as, you know, there is an adventure, and, you know, thankfully Monte Cook has provided not only a wonderfully easy-to-read rulebook, which makes this an easily accessible to run game for children, it also gives you an adventure book called Let's Go on an Adventure, and it tells you about the different worlds of Storia, which there are 4 distinct worlds that they talk about. There is Out the Window, which is all of your adventures that can take place in kind of a wide expanse. So it's outer space, it's undersea, it's very, very awesome.
Under the sea!
Under the sea! There's Behind the Bookshelf, which is basically anything that you could find in a book, or in any of the kind of stories that you're typically used to. Typically those are like just kind of your mainline stories, like things you'd find in a comic book or a regular book, things like that. Because you have Into the Forest, or Into the Closet. Into the Closet are kind of like more of your fantasy-oriented stuff. So you'll have, like, you know, Beanstalks are over there. We also have, like, the Hex Kitchen, so there's a lot of magic. I personally like the Hive, which features into one of the first intro adventures that they have in the book. Then you have Under the Bed, which is kind of one of my favorites, because under the bed, that's where all the monsters live, so that's where all your spooky stories take place. And spooky stories kind of brings us to one of the other unique things about No Thank You Evil, at least from a therapist's standpoint.
No!
What do you mean, no?
So your players get these tokens that are the symbol on the box, No Thank You Evil, right? So it's got evil with a no symbol on it. If, during the course of the game, one of the players becomes uncomfortable with something that you're presenting them, or you give them a monster to fight, but they're visualizing this thing, and it legitimately becomes frightening for them, or there's something that they can't handle, they can take this thing, throw it down and say, No Thank You Evil. At that point, whatever you've just given them as an encounter goes away. Okay? Bad guy's defeated. Everything's cleared out. You basically, you won the scenario. But what it gives you the opportunity to do is to now, with that player, kind of explore what reaction, what caused them to have that reaction, what was frightening about it. Reinforcing that whole, this is just an imaginary situation, but there may be some real things that are going on in that person's life that cause that fear. So kind of getting down to the nitty-gritty of why these reactions happen can get players engaged into talking about things that maybe they wouldn't normally want to talk about.
Yeah. Yeah, in general, the whole idea behind is they also use the nice little My Turn token, so it's a good way to teach, just how you can talk to other people more generally, waiting for your turn, all kind of good behavior stuff. So, again, that's kind of, we threw a lot of information at you out there, and we hope we didn't overwhelm too much with that, because we're going to, with this kind of next little segment here, is go into a little bit of, some of the therapeutic connections.
Yeah.
Some of the possible side effects we usually kind of talk about. They're kind of mostly silly, but I gotta say that we really have an extreme kind of love affair going on with this game, just because of how wonderful it's presented and how easy it is just for anybody to pick up. One of the things that we said kind of at the beginning of the show that still applies to virtually, even this role-playing game is, there is a certain skill level that has to be married between therapist and game master if you're going to be running this for an intentionally therapeutic purpose. And the reason for that is, quite simply, if your story stinks, I don't want to go anywhere near it. And engagement and immersion in this whole world of the story or whatever it is that you're presenting, it's highly important to the use of this model, because the character is the vehicle that we explore things through. We're going to actually talk a little bit about kind of an example of how Bodhana used this game therapeutically, and it was a wonderful set of sessions. It went very, very well. We used it, actually I'll probably talk about it now as a good lead-in maybe.
Sure.
Yeah. So we ran sessions of this therapeutically for a local organization called Olivia's House. And Olivia's House is an agency in the York area. They also have offices in Carlisle area, for those of you kind of local to it. But they work on grief and loss. Children, families, pretty much anyone who has suffered through that. So we ran the game as kind of an exploration for some guys that had already kind of been through their program. So our idea or our goal with this was to kind of gauge, these guys have learned different coping skills and they've learned to open up or talk about it. So let's explore the nature and the emotional feelings behind grief and loss through the context of a story. So what we did was we created this whole story where the grand inventor of Storia, was a thing we totally made up. He was kidnapped, supposedly, from the Grand Inventors Fair. And the characters basically got introduced to Storia, so they were traveling from land to land, kind of chasing after him, kind of trying to figure out, where he had gone and what was going on. And as the inventor kind of went through, he was kind of cleaning up messes as he went through Storia. And the characters would encounter various, challenges. And what we did was we built a lot of the challenges to contain a lot of tropes and a lot of themes that were sadness, grief, loss, persons going away, which of course was like one of the grand end themes, was that the inventor knew his time was up. He knew that he was not long in this life anymore, so he was just trying to clean up and pick up things as he went. And it ended in this big emotional scene where, the inventor was basically telling everybody, I'm sorry, where I'm going, you can't go with me. I must take this journey alone, but I want you to remember all the things that I've said to you and that I've taught you, and look at all the lives that you've touched along the way. And I mean, it was a very emotional session. But it gave us an opportunity in collaboration with Olivia's house to kind of say, okay, these guys were being very honest about what they had felt, in their personal experiences of grief. They were having healthy emotional reactions. And the beauty of it was, it wasn't, well, you defeated this bad guy. How do you feel about that? It was, we're going to play through it. Afterwards, or if there was any kind of really overt reaction, we would check in, kind of our own little no thank you evil, sure. Right? But the idea and the simplicity, the fact that we had just created a story that contained themes that were very relevant to what those persons were going through. That's no different from, you crying during Armageddon because, the daddy figure was going away and it brought emotions to you. There's no difference to that level of connection to material that helps you get an emotional response out. And the beauty is, you can make whatever story you want. You can put any themes into this. Like we had some of the highlights of it was one of the challenges we gave to the guys was they were going to Castle Karaoke, which is actually one of the locations here, and Lucy Medusi, one of the Medusas that they met in the Under the Bed world, desperately wanted to be a performer and she wanted to be a singer. So she was singing the Castle Karaoke competition, but she couldn't because every time she went to face her audience, she would turn them all to stone. So the guys had to figure out a way to let Lucy, produce some music without turning her audience to stone. And they came up, it was just a really kind of silly, simple thing where it was these glasses that kind of like two-way mirrors, but they had fake googly eyes on the front. So imagine a Medusa with snakes and like bouncy googly eyes going into this it was just absolutely
silly.
Phenomenal. Yeah, it was totally silly. We had the breakfast ninjas who, threw little pats of butter to get their enemies to slip, or they had like syrup that they threw down. It was, the kids were having a blast. They were engaging in therapy that was not heavy-handed, and they were still getting relevant materials. Like the one character, the one young guy, he named his character Bert the Spy. And, again, not giving anybody's identity or anything, but he actually created the character as an homage to the person in his life that he had lost. Because he was like, well, we had asked, like, are you afraid of anything? And the person in question we knew was, like, afraid of the dark. And so we were asking, he's like, well, I'm not afraid of him. And we're like, and we talked about it later, and he was like, well, that's not me. He's like, that character is my dad. And we were like, oh, so you were playing it like an homage to him? And he goes like, no, I'm doing what I thought my dad would do. And we're like sitting there, we're like, holy crap, this kid's like 10 years old and he just like therapy schooled us. Like he's going deep.
He knows things.
Yeah, we didn't even mean that deeply to inject. We just wanted kind of a nice cursory experience. He took this experience as an opportunity to try and figure out how better he could understand that person that's no longer a part of his life. So he was exploring his connection and his emotional role, with the person he had lost through the role-playing game, and that was all self-generated. Mm-hmm. So, people will get out of something what they want, but that narrative, we've been playing role-playing games in our lives for, gosh, who knows how long.
Oh my god, so many years.
Yeah, how many different stories have we told throughout all of those numbers of years?
6.
6, that's it? 6?
Well, they all fit into basic categories.
Aye. So, some of the ways, I know that we spend a lot of time talking about some of the potential application, but we want to kind of highlight not just No Thank You Evil, but also just role-playing games in general. So, I don't know, you want to kind of take the first one?
So, role-playing games are a huge chance for you to be able to develop something that's actually kind of difficult to develop when you're playing board games, which is social skills.
Oh, yeah.
The ability to communicate and really communicate effectively, at the table.
This is why I love doing a show with you, sir.
This is going to be
This is
delicious.
absolutely perfect.
So,
Yes.
Teaching people social skills and how to be able to interact, what's considered, proper interactions, basing them on the characters that they're playing and how those characters would interact with each other, being able to teach somebody how to navigate a social situation by playing a character that's opposite what they would normally do, so that they can learn, what it's like to be this other person that they're having problems communicating with. Excuse me. There's such a wide array of things that you can do that when you're playing a board game, often the strictures are, the rules and how the board interacts and the game interacts with the board and how the players are either competing for something or they're cooperatively working together for something. But many of those games are about the strategies and the planning ahead and things like that. With this, you're working together to tell a story with the people that you're sitting at the table with. So your ability to communicate and interact with them is really key to be a vibrant part of that story.
Well, and tabling on to what you had just said, it's also that idea of not only are we creating the story, but we're also as a group responding to the story.
Yeah,
and that's kind of one of the. Most of the time you'll hear about therapeutic or clinical application of role playing games. You're going to hear this most often described in trying to do any kind of clinical or treatment work with persons on the autism spectrum or folks with like social skills delays or deficits, anything of that sort, because the game is inherently social. Y'all need to talk either to the game master or to each other to be able to effectively enjoy the hobby, which again, remember we said immersion comes in very, very helpful with this whole idea. If I don't like the story, I'm already out. So, I know, I always kind of joke around this when I say I know plenty of therapists who are not going to make good game masters, and I know just as many great game masters that would probably not be good therapists, because telling that story is half of the journey to making that story meaningful and relevant in a way that really kind of like zings to a person. So, just something as simple as, the young man playing this game, exploring his role and connection and his understanding of his father, all the way coming down to, we've had people that have played characters with addiction in role-playing games. And, we always kind of said, the way you play a person who's addicted kind of says something about what you feel about addiction. So, that piece is going to, lead a little bit into empathy. But you can't really understate the creative social aspects of the role-playing game hobby, because it's really, it's one of the biggest focuses that the game will give you. We jokingly say the education portion it's going to teach you nouns, verbs, and adjectives. No, that just...
But it does.
Yeah, but it does.
But
it does. It's a verb is an action. It's a thing that you do. I would probably say that specifically with No Thank You Evil, one of the biggest punches is the creativity and expression aspect, because you can create any kind of character, you can create any type of adventure. They do a great job for Monte Cook of giving you like places like Karaoke Castle, Goodbyes. Well, what is that? It's a marketplace, obviously, by the picture, but what do they sell? Who's there?
Shark bait. Hoo-ha.
Shark bait, yes. What is that? It's a half-sunken ship. Who knows who lives there? Maybe it's people are trapping sharks, so they use the ship to attract stray sharks in so they can capture them for weird, for evil. Or maybe it's sharks live there and they have a bait shop. It could be any of those things, all of those things, or none of those things. It just depends on you. And that's, really as far as highlights for this, I guess, because we could go on all day about potentialities. So, one big aspect is if you are talking about a confidence builder, and this is something we've been exploring with some of our groups lately in Bodhana, is we've been exploring a lot about, not just running a game for a person, but also the therapeutic benefit of a person in services or in treatment running a game themselves. We're talking about a lot of creativity. We're talking a lot of, confidence building, that social skills of expression, being able to tell a story that maybe is very important. How many writers create tales and stories that help them work through, inner demons of their own or struggles that they might be having? this system's accessibility makes it good for kids who want to run or play in a game for the first time. If you're a parent and you're like, holy crow, I do not want to buy these like 8 rule books to learn how to play D&D with my kid, you could run slightly serious adventures in this world or in any world that you want, because you can tell any story. So it's also very accessible for families to pick up and play, and they give you some starter adventures to kind of get the feel. So its accessibility and its creativity are probably 2 of the most engaging aspects of No Thank You Evil. Like, James had talked about earlier, that No Thank You Evil token is kind of a, whoa, this makes me uncomfortable. That's huge. It's a communication system for people who are, going under any kind of discomfort. So
yeah,
I'm trying to think, is there anything else that we've kind of forgotten as far as talking about this?
No, because I think anything else that we're going to say, we're just going to continue to repeat ourselves on like what this can do and how you can utilize it.
Hello, it's great.
I think where I want to leave it is I just want to say, like, if you really want to try to do something different than everything else that we've discussed up to this point, give this a shot. If you feel like you're confined or restricted by rules or setup or
or charts and tables and charts,
or charts and tables and charts and ladders and chairs and stairs, you can use this. This gives you a creative outlet to be as detailed or as simplified as you want.
Yeah.
You can run a game that has the operation language that you find in Go Dog Go.
Yeah.
If you really wanted to get that simplified with it, you could do that.
Yeah, very much so.
Or maybe take them to a storybook world where everybody speaks in sentences that have no more than 5 words.
Oh, wow, that's creative. That's awesome, dude. Just right off the cuff.
Like a children's book.
Yeah.
Like they go to a children's book world.
Right there.
My kung fu is strong.
Your game fu. Yeah, it's. There are a couple of. I won't say expansions. Like they have some story starter decks, some nice little additionals that you can get. This game is fully available to a friendly local game store. It is also available on the website, which we had showed earlier, just Monte Cook Games. It's a wonderful system. It's one that we've run at Save Against Fear convention. It's one that we've run kind of outside for therapeutic purposes, and we always never fail to say thank you to Shauna, who this game has received multiple awards for best in gaming because of all the things that we've talked about. So again, it would be a welcome addition to your game table. Great way to get a kid started in the hobby.
So come find us. If you have more questions,
yes,
on the Bodhana webpage, bodhanagroup.org.
Yes.
I can do outros.
Or you can email us at
No,
not yet.
C9er.
Is it Niner? Are you using a walkie-talkie?
Shut up.
It's See, you got me, sir. The Bodhana Group at gmail.com, or you can check us out on Facebook, on our normal Facebook page.
That's called the Bodhana Group.
Yes, and please do not forget that pre-registration is open again for our annual fundraiser event, Save Against Fear. Will be held October 12th through the 14th in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, at the Harrisburg Mall. And
no, thank you, Fear.
Yes. Saved Against Fear. That's awesome. That was easy.
It's like a Staples button.
Yeah, saving against
fantasy.
fear is easy once you know Mom. Thank you all for tuning in for this episode. We'll definitely see you next time. And
for Save Against Fear, would like to thank 6 Feet Under Games for their sponsorship of Save Against Fear this year. They are going to be the big kahunas on the t-shirts. Also, if you're into Superman, these episodes are brought to you by the fine work of the people at Wicked Turtle Productions.
Yes.
That is Wicked Turtle.
Oh, that's like a wicked turtle.
Yeah, you meet my friend Mac. He's Wicked Smat. So Wicked Turtle Productions, and you can find us on there along with many other wonderful, wonderful content from many, many people. My honey.
See, I think I've infected you with the long goodbye.
No, I wanted you to continue to extend it because you have problems saying goodbye.
I just don't like saying goodbye.
I know. I just have problems not being entertaining while I'm saying goodbye. That's my
That
whole
is
thing.
fair. That is fair.
People keep wanting more.
And if you're a game designer or a game company who maybe would like your product reviewed or put onto the Bodhana-Cast, again, use the same channels to kind of check out where you can get that to us and how we can maybe get your stuff up onto our stuff.
Anything else, Jack?
No, I don't think so. Unless
sure?
you'd like to discuss U.S., Chinese, Russian détente.
No, I'm good.
I don't even know what détente means.
Since we are recording this on Sunday, the 8th of April, I would also like to wish all of my fellow wrestling fans a very happy Rusev Day.
What is wrong with
as
you?
we march toward WrestleMania.
That's okay. All right. Thank you, everybody.
Oh, you were pointing.
Yes, I was
the season. It's still, yeah, we're not there, so the season of pointing still works.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
So, again, I am one of your hosts, Mr. Jack Berkenstock.
I'm your other host, James.
The Captain.
I like that you do the nickname.
Yes, I
That's
have
fun.
to do the nickname. Great
Okay.
games out there, everybody. We'll see you next time.